Picture this. You're lying in bed. The house is silent. The only sound is your own breathing. Then, suddenly, you hear it, a faint creak in the hallway. Instantly, your heart races, your muscles tighten, and your mind spins 1,000 scenarios. In those seconds, your body acts as if a predator is about to leap from the shadows. But when you finally gather the courage to check, nothing is there. Just silence. Just emptiness. So why did you panic? Why did your nervous system respond as if your very survival was under threat, when in reality, nothing happened? This is the paradox of fear. Most of the things we fear the most don't exist in the present. They are possibilities, projections, and imagined futures. We fear rejection before it happens, failure before we even try, death long before it arrives. The monsters we run from aren't hiding under the bed. They live in our imagination. Philosophers have known this for centuries. Epictetus, the Stoic, once said, "Man suffers more from imagination than from reality." Kierkegaard called it the dizziness of freedom, the anxiety of possibility itself. And Carl Jung warned us that what we refuse to confront within ourselves becomes a shadow that haunts us endlessly. But here's the real question. If fear is mostly an illusion, why does it feel so real? Why does something that exists only in the mind have the power to paralyze the body? And more importantly, can we ever escape it? Or do we actually need fear in order to live with meaning and direction? In today's video, we're going to break this down. We'll explore why human beings are wired to fear what doesn't exist, why our imagination is often more terrifying than reality, and how the greatest minds in philosophy, from Stoics to existentialists, teach us to turn fear from a prison into a compass. Because maybe the real problem isn't fear itself, but the story we keep telling ourselves about it. Fear is one of the oldest emotions written into our biology. Long before philosophy, long before civilization, fear was our survival code. It was the silent alarm system that kept our ancestors alive in the wilderness. When a twig snapped in the dark, fear surged through the body, sharpening the senses, quickening the heart, preparing muscles to either run or fight. Without fear, humanity might not have survived predators, hunger, or natural disasters. Fear was never an enemy. It was an evolutionary gift. But here's the paradox. The world we live in today is not the savanna of our ancestors. Most of us are not running from lions or hiding from rival tribes. Instead, the threats we face are subtle, abstract, and often invisible. We fear losing status. We fear being rejected. We fear making mistakes. And yet, our brain reacts to these modern anxieties as if they were lions crouching in the tall grass. The same biological system that once saved us now often imprisons us. This is why so much of what we fear never comes true. The human mind has evolved to anticipate danger, even when there is none. It fills the unknown with worst-case scenarios. That creak in the hallway becomes a burglar. That silence after you send a message becomes rejection. That new opportunity becomes a trap waiting to ruin you. Our imagination, fueled by fear, becomes more dangerous than reality itself. Philosopher Michel de Montaigne once said, "My life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." And he was right. Fear fabricates futures that exist only in thought. It convinces us that we are not safe, not ready, not enough. And because our body cannot distinguish between real danger and imagined danger, we live in a constant state of tension, running from enemies that don't exist. But what exactly is fear? Is it just a biological reflex? Or is it something deeper, something tied to meaning itself? The Stoics saw fear as a distortion of reason. To them, external events are neutral. It is our judgment that makes them terrifying. Epictetus taught that nothing in life is inherently frightening. Only our interpretation gives it power. For example, death itself is not terrifying. It is the belief that death is unbearable that creates fear. Poverty is not terrifying. It is the belief that it robs us of worth that paralyzes us. Fear, in this view, is not in the world but in the mind. Existentialists, however, had a different take. For thinkers like Soren Kierkegaard and Martin Heidegger, fear, or what they often called anxiety, is not simply a malfunction. It is part of the human condition. Fear arises precisely because we are free, because the future is uncertain, because life itself is fragile. In other words, fear is not just a bug in the system. It is proof that we are alive, conscious, and responsible for our choices. So we arrive at the core paradox. Fear is both an illusion and a truth. It is an illusion because most of what we fear never materializes. But it is also a truth because the possibility of loss, pain, and death is always real, lurking somewhere ahead of us. Fear stretches across this tension between what is real and what is imagined, what is present and what is possible. And maybe this is why fear feels so overwhelming. It is not simply about what's happening now. It is about everything that could happen. It is about the infinite weight of possibilities pressing down on a fragile human mind. This raises the question, if fear is part of who we are, can it ever be mastered? Or are we doomed to remain prisoners of possibilities that never arrive? Think about this. Most of the things you feared in your life never actually happened. The presentation you thought you would fail, you survived. The rejection you were sure would crush you, it either never came, or it came and you moved on. The disaster you rehearsed in your head remained only in your head. And yet, while those fears never materialized, they felt real in the moment. Your palms still sweated, your stomach still twisted, your heart still pounded. That's the illusion of imagined threats. The body cannot tell the difference between a lion charging at you and a thought of a lion charging at you. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus captured this perfectly. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. It's not the event itself that hurts us most. It's the thousands of times we relive it in our minds before it ever happens. This is where fear becomes less about biology and more about psychology. Evolution gave us imagination as a survival tool. Our ancestors survived because they could anticipate danger. If I go near that river, there might be crocodiles. The problem is that this same tool now invents dangers that don't exist. If I speak up in class, people will laugh at me. If I start this business, I'll probably fail. If I love someone, they'll eventually leave me. It's the same system, just pointed at ghosts instead of predators. Kierkegaard, in his book The Concept of Anxiety, said that anxiety is not about specific dangers, but about possibility itself. We fear the infinite what-ifs. What if I lose my job? What if I embarrass myself? What if I never find love? What if I die before I do anything meaningful? Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom, the realization that an infinite number of futures are possible, and some of them might destroy us. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that public speaking, for example, triggers the same fight-or-flight response as physical threats. Your brain imagines judgment, rejection, humiliation, and your body reacts as though a tiger is stalking you. But the tiger isn't real. It's a thought. Here's where Carl Jung adds another layer. He believed that what we fear most often comes from the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny or repress. Fear of failure? It may be your shadow telling you that you secretly crave success. Fear of rejection? It may be your shadow revealing how deeply you long for connection. What we fear is often a mirror, reflecting back the truths we don't want to face. And so, most of our fear is not about the world. It's about ourselves. Not about reality, but about the stories we've written about reality. This illusion is powerful because it feels indistinguishable from truth. But once we recognize it as illusion, fear begins to lose its grip. The question then becomes, if fear is mostly imaginary, how can philosophy help us rewrite these stories? How do we move from being slaves to phantom threats to using them as guides? Philosophy isn't meant to stay locked in books. It's meant to be lived. And when it comes to fear, the greatest thinkers gave us real, concrete practices to stop being ruled by ghosts of the mind. Here are 3 timeless tools to master the fears that don't exist. 1. Premeditatio malorum, the Stoic drill. The Stoics believe that fear loses its grip when you shine a light on it. This is why they practiced premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. Every morning, imagine the worst-case scenario of your day: losing your job, being embarrassed, even facing rejection. Instead of spiraling into panic, calmly walk through how you would endure it. Ask, if this happened, could I survive? Could I still live with dignity? Most of the time, you realize, yes, you can. The monster shrinks. As Seneca said, he who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man. By rehearsing fear, you neutralize it. 2. Paradoxical intention, Frankl's liberation. Viktor Frankl discovered that when you fight fear, it grows stronger. But when you embrace it, even exaggerate it, it loses its teeth. Afraid of blushing in public? Say to yourself, fine, I'll blush so hard people will think I painted my face. Afraid of failing? Declare, I will fail gloriously. This reversal breaks the cycle of tension. Instead of being trapped in resistance, you laugh at fear. It becomes ridiculous. Frankl wrote, what is to give light must endure burning. By stepping willingly into fear, you reclaim freedom. 3. Shadow journaling, Jung's mirror. Carl Jung taught that what we fear often hides what we need most. He called this the shadow. To integrate it, try this simple nightly exercise. Write down one fear that bothered you today. Then ask, what value is this fear protecting? Example, if you fear speaking up in class, maybe it's because you value intelligence, clarity, or respect. By recognizing the shadow, you transform fear into a signal of growth. As Jung warned, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Fear is the unconscious calling for your attention. Crosswords, a challenge for you. Tonight, take 5 minutes and write down the one fear that holds you back the most. Then ask yourself, is it real or is it just imagination? If it is imaginary, what truth is it pointing me toward? Do this daily, and you'll see fear not as an enemy, but as a teacher. This is where philosophy becomes practice, not lofty ideas, but tools for everyday courage. At the root of almost every fear, failure, rejection, loneliness, lurks one ancient shadow, the fear of death. Think about it. Why do we fear embarrassment? Because it feels like social death. Why do we fear losing a job? Because it threatens survival. Why do we fear heartbreak? Because it mirrors the final separation, loss itself. Philosophers have obsessed over this ultimate fear for centuries. Epictetus, death is nothing to us. Epictetus believed the fear of death was the greatest thief of joy. His logic was ruthless. When death is, we are not. When we are, death is not. Therefore, why fear what we will never experience? It's a clean argument, yet most of us can't escape the anxiety. The Stoics, make death your ally. For the Stoics, death wasn't a terror, it was a compass. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you can leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Death is the reminder that life is short, that our time is scarce, that procrastination is theft. The fear of death, when reframed, becomes fuel for urgency and meaning. Montaigne, to learn to die is to learn to live. The French philosopher Michel de Montaigne said, to practice death is to practice freedom. What he meant is simple. If you make peace with the ultimate loss, nothing else can enslave you. Every smaller fear, failure, rejection, embarrassment, shrinks in comparison. The existentialists, fear as awakening. Heidegger called death the possibility of the impossibility of existence. Complicated words, but here's the core. When you face death honestly, you awaken to life. You realize that every moment is fragile, unrepeatable, and therefore sacred. Sartre added another twist. We fear freedom because it mirrors death. Both are infinite, both demand responsibility. The void of possibility terrifies us, but it also forces us to create meaning. The ultimate reframe. The climax of fear is this realization. Death is not an enemy to run from. It is a mirror that strips away illusion. It tells us, stop wasting time. Stop fearing shadows. Live while you can. The irony? By confronting death, the thing we dread the most, we end up fearing less of life. Question for the audience. If you truly accepted death, what would you stop being afraid of today? So here's the truth we've been circling around. Most of your fears, they're ghosts. Stories your brain whispers at 3 a.m. They look real, they sound real, but they're just echoes of possibilities that haven't even happened. Epictetus nailed it centuries ago. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. And today, nothing has changed. But here's the paradox. Those same fears you think are enemies, they're actually guides. They point to what matters most to you. You don't fear rejection unless you crave connection. You don't fear failure unless you care about success. You don't fear death unless you desperately want to live. Fear is not proof that you're weak. It's proof that you're alive. The takeaway: next time fear shows up, don't ask, how do I kill it? Ask instead, what is it protecting? What value is it showing me? Because the monsters under your bed? Most of them aren't real. But the meaning behind them, that's real. That if this video made you stop and think, hit like. Not for me. For the YouTube gods that decide whether this idea survives or disappears. If you want more of these existential rabbit holes, subscribe. Consider it your free ticket to weekly reality checks. And drop a comment. What fear are you still wrestling with that doesn't exist yet? I promise. Half the people here are haunted by the same ghost.